Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the show. Intermittent fasting is one of those things that I think everyone is curious about, especially if you have tried to lose weight, you've definitely heard about it. I realize I'm usually finding things that are ridiculous and I'm more or less debunking them, and I kind of tell you to write the whole thing off. Whereas with intermittent fasting, I actually do think it can be incredibly useful, especially in the right circumstances for the right person. I think it can really almost feel like that magic pill, but that comes with a lot of caveats. So we're going to go through those today. Let's start out with what is fasting. Fasting goes back thousands and thousands of years. This is not anything new. Like if you think about Ramadan, people fast for religious reasons, people fast for medical reasons. Fasting is not new. But I think the idea of time restricted eating within weight loss is really more what we're talking about here. I think part of what makes intermittent fasting so attractive is that most diets tell you what to eat and, more importantly, what you can't eat, whereas intermittent fasting instead defines when you can eat. The most popular versions of intermittent fasting that I see, usually 16-8 is where people either hear about it or start. I think it's extremely reasonable. A lot of people do this without even realizing it. And then there's this lovely progression that seems to happen. It's like, well, if a little is good, a lot must be the best. We start seeing people do things like the warrior diet, which is you only eat once every 24-hour period, or you're doing every other day fasting, or things that are just completely unnecessary at that point. Or you're doing something like the 5-2 method, where 5 days you eat normally and then 2 days you're only eating like 300 to 500 calories. I don't recommend any really of the more extreme versions. There are a few things that go into intermittent fasting that give it all these big claims. I'm going to talk about the two biggest ones in my opinion. So if you haven't eaten for 3 to 4 hours in a row, something called the migrating motor complex kicks in. This is essentially your body's digestive cleanup system. Anything that is left in your digestive tract, anything that is not digested properly, anything that wasn't absorbed, and it essentially sets your body up to absorb your next meal better and more efficiently. And for some reason, I think that people don't think the migrating motor complex kicks in until like 12, 15 hours. I've seen that a lot of places. That is not true. Everything that I have ever seen on this process that kicks in, 3 to 4 hours is most people's window. And that just looks like not snacking between meals. That's not that crazy. But let's talk about the big one. If you took the time as to so much Google intermittent fasting, you have heard two words: autophagy and HGH, probably insulin too as a third bonus. So what kicked off this giant growth hormone thing is that there was a study done probably close to a decade ago now, but basically it found that in humans, when we fast, human growth hormone increases. If you are not familiar, human growth hormone is really, really abundant when we're younger. And then as we get older, it sort of decreases over time. It's responsible for a lot of really good processes within the body that keep us looking young, keep us feeling good, so on and so forth. And this is the reason that you'll see the gym bros taking HGH, right? When you take HGH as an adult and you have an abundance of it, you are going to put on muscle super quick. You're going to recover like crazy. Your sleep's going to be amazing. Everything recovery related is going to upregulate. Now let's just go one step further in that so we can understand. When you are taking excess HGH, presumably you are working out and you are eating decently. You're going to get better results even if you're not 100%, but the idea is that you're probably doing those things because otherwise, why are you spending a bunch of money on growth hormone every month? That doesn't make a lot of sense. So stay with me. Human growth hormone is not doing the workouts for them. It's not getting the food in that's going to actually repair the muscle and make it grow. All it's doing is making those processes hyper efficient. So let's connect all of these dots. For people in a fasted state, we see an increase in HGH. So basically, we're doing steroids by adding a fast to our day, right? No, because of one reason. Growth hormone has a million roles within the body, but one of its primary roles is to free up fat stores. So it's taking fat that we have stored, it's basically mobilizing it, and so we can use it for energy. And that makes sense because we're fasted and we're not taking in energy, so we need to get it from somewhere. So that process initiating makes sense. When HGH is secreted without the presence of amino acids and insulin, or AKA protein and carbohydrates, it does not facilitate muscle growth in the same way. And unfortunately, studies have even gone as far as to show that you're more likely to lose muscle in a fasted state than have an overall gain effect from that HGH. But let's talk about what also comes along with that, autophagy. When we talk about autophagy, We are talking about the cellular cleanup process. So it is removing anything that is toxic. It is removing cancer cells. It is removing all of these crazy things that can then cause harm to our body. So again, magic, right? This one a little bit more so, but not to the extent that I think it's been blown up to online. The process of autophagy happens to everyone all the time, especially when you're sleeping. You are both fasted and at a resting state. You're going to have the majority of this process happen while you're asleep. However, we can trigger it when we are fasted. And there are benefits to this, but this is not a more is better situation necessarily. So at around that 8 to 10 hour mark, we start to see increased levels of autophagy that we wouldn't normally see during the daytime, which is great. You are going to have better cellular cleanup than if you didn't fast. However, once we start to see cortisol spike, which is very natural because if you think back to caveman times, if we haven't eaten, something needs to motivate us to be stressed enough to go eat, right? We have to go kill the tiger. So when cortisol starts to rise, there is a point of diminishing returns where it's no longer the autophagy outweighing the cortisol spike. And this is going to kind of even itself out. You're not going to see any more benefit from doing these like 48-hour fast. Like that's typically not going to be a net positive for almost anybody. So let's talk about who should intermittent fast. And from now on within this episode, when I say fast, I'm talking about anything from like an 8-16 split all the way up to like a 12-12 split, typically not more than that. Men tend to be able to get away with a little bit longer fast than women do. Our bodies are designed to reproduce, unfortunately. That is all our body cares about in terms of making sure we are able to carry a child and support both our health and the baby's health if we were to get pregnant. So when we stop eating, those signals go up a lot faster for us. Are any of us surprised? No. But yes, women kind of get the short end of the stick on this one. If you find that you're a person that after 8 p.m. or after this time, you do not do any favors for your own health, you're eating whatever, that is a really good example of that cutoff time can help. It's not that the thing has more calories after 8 p.m. It's that after 8 p.m., you don't typically eat things that only have a few calories, you know? I've had a lot of clients, I don't have any that have downed a pint of Ben & Jerry's at 7 a.m., lots at 7 p.m. Just my observation. So what does that tell us? If we get rid of that time eating, we no longer have to make that decision. Should I have this? Should I have that? It's just made for you. And a lot of times people can see a lot of success with that. If you have digestive or gut issues, I see a lot of benefit from those people just skipping the snacks. So 3 to 4 full hours between each meal and having like a very reasonable portion. I think that can do a lot all on its own, but that's someone this could work for. And the last person I will say that this works very well for are people that are hyper food focused. And if you are hyper food focused, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is something that you think about all day. It's sort of a background thought, no matter where you are or what you're doing, is like, okay, how much food do I have left? Okay, I've already eaten this. No, I probably shouldn't eat that. I should probably do this, but what if I can't have that? No, I'll start Monday and then I won't be able to have this thing ever again. So I'm gonna have a lot. And it goes on and on and on. And it's this endless loop. And it's a very, very hard cycle to break. So I have seen people have a lot of success with this. Huge caveat here. This is the minor version of quote unquote binge and restrict. If you are full blown binging, like you are having not, oh, I had a full sleeve of Oreos. Yes, that might feel like a binge, but it's not a clinical binge. And that's not the verbiage that I'm using here. So if you are a person that you are physically ill or unable to move the next, that is a step beyond. And I really recommend talking to someone because you don't have to feel like that. If you are a person that you just find yourself overeating in that loop and then restricting and back and forth, this can be a way to sort of stop that noise. If it's no longer a decision, if you eat, you don't have to fight with yourself about what it's going to be. And sometimes that can be really, really calming for people for the rest of their day and take their mind off food and get them out of the habit of that constant loop. And I think that can be really helpful. This is less, I've read this in papers and peer-reviewed studies, and more so my experience observing clients and doing this for a long time. There are two types of people that I normally see, and almost everyone can categorize themselves fairly quickly with what I'm about to tell you. So if you're unsure if this is going to be a helpful tool for weight loss to kind of restrict how long you're eating so you therefore eat less, it's an easier way to lose weight. If you're like, I think I want to try that, great. I suggest doing it for 3 days. Start off slow, do 16-8. Don't go crazy or this isn't going to work because you're not going to get the same biofeedback. If by day 3, you are using your eating window to eat as much as possible, this is going to be a net negative on you and you will gain weight over time. I'm just being honest with you. If you are a person that after 3 days, you go, oh my effing God, where has this been all my life? It is so easy to not eat. Like, I haven't thought about it. I'm already losing weight. It's probably going to be a good tool for you. With both of these people, number one, don't fight it. If you put yourself in a category, just let that information be. It's okay. With that, if it does work for you, don't then do what I said in the beginning and go, okay, well, more must be better. I'm going to now fast for 24 hours. I see people then come back and rebound on this crazy binge the next day, especially the longer they do it. It kind of happens over time. So if you find something's working for you, let it work. Don't fix what isn't broken. I want to give you some tips if you are going to fast. What is the best way to go about that? First rule, start gradually, 16-8. Start there. Number 2, this is not a dry fast. You should be drinking water. You should be drinking water when you wake up. You should be drinking water in the middle of the day. You should be drinking water the entire time. That does not, quote unquote, count against your fast. It doesn't. Don't do that. Drink your water. Let's use our common sense. Don't let people trick you into thinking it's water. It's 0 calories. I've seen so many things on the internet lately that make me want to claw my own fucking eyes out. This type of water will break your face. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I can't with this. Fasting is one of those things that it was just too simple and just these fitness morons just took it and fucking ran. They booked it. It's nuts. Fasting is so simple. And I have seen so many people on the internet trying to make it this complicated thing. Don't eat. That's the whole thing. It's the whole diet. This type of seltzer water isn't going to break your fast 50-calorie limit. No. They're trying to sell you an ebook and it's shitty and it's going to tell you to not eat. Don't complicate this. It is not that hard. If you start questioning if you can have water at certain times or you'll gain weight or throw yourself out of a fasted state, touch grass. If you are questioning drinking water, don't listen to that person. If you are feeling a little sluggish or I don't really have the energy, there is an adaptation period. Being a little sluggish is not being dizzy, okay? So do know the difference there. If you're not responding to something well, your body is telling you what works for you. People don't get very far when they're fighting their body every step of the way. So if this is something you're trying and you're feeling dizzy and you feel like crap and it's telling you that it's not maybe for you, and that's okay. We want to listen to our body. We don't want to drown it out in the sake of fat loss or whatever. There's a way that will work for you. This just might not be it. I want to wrap this with essentially a breakdown of if I was going to try intermittent fasting, these are the main things I would want to know and follow. First and foremost, remember that just because we gave it a fancy name, intermittent fasting is just skipping breakfast. That's it. It's not that fancy. And because it is as simple as that, don't complicate it. Don't start asking yourself a million questions trying to cheat this. Just stick to what it is. Number 2, I would also start with around a 16-8 split. I think that is enough to shave off the sort of tail ends of the day for a lot of people and save you on that intake without then throwing you into a state where you're rebounding and you're binging. I would try it for 3 days, maybe a week, making sure that you're eating healthy within that time. You're doing your best in making an effort. And then I would assess, am I starving at night and are my cravings getting way worse? I think that's going to be a really good sign as to whether this is going to work for you or not. If you find yourself gaming the system, if you're okay, well, if I have this and then that won't throw me out of my fasted state, but then I can have this later and I'll close that window, but then I'll have a whole pizza and then it's the same thing as if you're counting macros and it's all you think about all day is how you can fit in the Pop-Tarts and how you can fit in it. It's not the point. So make sure that it's something that you're doing for health reasons. There's a lot of longevity concerns that people come up with, and there's things that do support autophagy and HGH increases and all that with longevity and neural function and all of these great things. But you know what doesn't support those things? Is feeling like shit and being overweight. Let's be so for real. If you're going to come at me and be it's longevity, it's HGH, it's autophagy, it's blah, blah, but you're eating Twinkies you're lying. And that's okay. I don't know if you're lying to me or that's okay. We don't have to even go there. But we're not doing it for the right reasons. I want you to think about your health as health. I promise you, if you give a shit about your health, your body will come as a side effect. If you've stayed this long, and especially if you're on YouTube, tell me what fasting splits you guys have done. How long do you fast and how long is your eating window? I'm very curious as to what's worked for you. I think intermittent fasting can be such a good tool Unfortunately, I think people complicate it and stress about it to the point that it's not. So if you're going to use it, I think that's great, but just use it as is and just keep everything else the same. Eat healthy, eat your protein, get your veggies in. You should see great results. But if you're finding your body is fighting you every step of the way, you feel like shit, you're like, it's just not working and your cravings getting worse, you're binging at night, it just might not be the thing. And that's okay. I have a bunch of episodes of a bunch of other things that you can try and you will find something that works for you. I think that there's certain mental acuity that can come with fasting. I think that it can take your mind off food. I think it can be an easy way to just shave calories off your day without really even noticing they're gone. But I think that there is a point of diminishing returns. So don't take it as a 16-hour fast is great. 24 hours must be better. If you could leave a review, if you got anything out of this show, I would appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And if you're listening to the show and you put it on Instagram, I'll always repost you, tag me, all of that stuff. I love hearing from you guys. So I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time.